We just now have a couple of video presentations. The next presentation is by Vince Kelly, who's going to be talking about the journey of the University of Queensland in setting up its own Makerspace to kind of complement the presentations we've heard earlier today about QUT's vision in relation to Makerspaces and entrepreneurship and the University of Southern Queensland.
Good morning, my name is Vince Kelly from the University of Queensland. I'd like to start this presentation with an acknowledgement of country. The University of Queensland acknowledges the traditional owners and their custodianship of the lands on which we meet. We pay our respects to their ancestors and their descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country. We recognise their valuable contributions to Australia and global society. So as I said, my name's Vince Kelly, and I'm speaking here today at the Remaking of the Maker Movement 2021 Symposium. The title of my presentation is The Journey of Building a World-Class Educational Makerspace at the University of Queensland. I'm the Innovation Group Manager and I work within the Faculty of Engineering, Architecture and IT. I'd like to start with a small presentation here of a movie of UQ Innovate as it currently stands.
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
So I hope you all enjoyed that. That was all shot within UQ Innovate. So we'll move on to now what the concept behind the Makerspace here at UQ is all about. So the engineering faculty had a review of the faculty's technical workshop capabilities, and that commenced prior to 2016. I joined in 2017, and what was identified was the need for a student-focused Makerspace. They wanted a professional workshop support to be redefined under three main categories: teaching and learning, prototyping, and instrumentation and electrical support. You'll see a photo there of the old workspace within a 1950s building, and of course we just saw the video of the renovated space. So yeah, a fair difference. So what does Makerspace mean at UQ? So skills development is a necessary graduate attribute for engineers and architects particularly. We need to give them access to a diverse range of processing equipment and also, of course, have access to professionally trade qualified staffing to assist them to get the best out of that equipment. The real mandate of the space is about us teaching it to do it for yourself. That means you do rather than we do. It's an open access space for both direct curriculum support, research, and also private use. And it's all about collaboration. So part of the Makerspace Charter was first and foremost about undergraduate engineering teaching support as the first priority. UQ delivers an embedded first-year learning program common to all engineering undergraduates. And this space supports the practical hands-on teaching within that first-year program, but also throughout the entire engineering program. We also support UQ's Entrepreneurship and Innovation ecosystem, which is branded under the UQ Ventures. The space is an essential outreach tool. We do a lot of tours, and we'll come back to that shortly. But above all, creative confidence is what we want to instill on the people that visit our space. Again, I'll just have a very quick video here of a first-year engineering prac that we supported within the space. So what you can see here is a mechatronics robotic car on a test track that the students built within the space. And this was the final demo day prac. So a very exciting time actually for the students and the staff involved. We'll quickly run through the design and construction phase of the space. The major features, it had to have a classroom-sized hand tool and general workbench resource, which we call a flexible space. It also needed a digital space supporting additive manufacturing, things like scanners, lasers, 3D printers. A large machine hall, which you really saw in that last video. And also something we didn't have previously is a collaboration meeting and presentation space. So here we see the renovation starting. I joke that it's too late to stop now. It was a complete demolition job of the old space, and you can see the new doorway on completion to the right. Again, on the left-hand side, all sorts of walls were taken out to really open up the space, and you can see that on the right-hand side, that became our new hand tools work bench area. Fully air-conditioned, videoed, and AV equipped. So we were very excited to offer that to the students. On the left again, we had our old storeroom area that was demolished, and we created this tiered seating area. And that's a really important function within the space, our collaboration space. It's actually made up of three parts: the tiered seating area, the think tank boardroom, which I'm presently sitting in doing this presentation underneath that seating area, and on top is a flexible lounge area. So we move on to the equipment selection in the Makerspace. At UQ Innovate, we have very large machines. The one on the left there is a flatbed CNC router. That's literally as large as a truck, and that sits out in the space. But also we have this small desktop CNC router to the right there. And I'd like to show that because it really demonstrates how you can start small but work up to something big. And it's really about gaining that confidence and above all, having a go. We also have low risk equipment like that laser cutter on the left in our digital space. But UQ Innovate is very different to a lot of makerspaces here in Australia in the educational front, because we let students have access to this right-hand piece of equipment, which is a manual lathe. And make no mistake, if you were to touch that lathe while it's running, it will cause you a great deal of injury. So how do we deal with that in our space? Of course, safety systems is what it's all about. From the safety administration side, the area is a secure facility. You saw the large gate in the video. You do an online and also a follow-up in-person induction and training session before you can gain access to the space. Our machinery on all devices has safe operating procedures, and these are linked to UQ's risk assessment database system. You'll see a picture here of the flooring, and we have a low, moderate and high area demarcation around the equipment, and that serves as a visual indicator about the risks that are at hand. I'm very pleased to explain this system that we developed in-house as part of my team. It's an access control system that operates on an ID card. So, of course, all our students, and there's my ID card in this device, all our students and staff have ID cards, and this 3D printed box here has all sorts of electronics in there that communicates with the online induction and training system, so that it is a verification that you have done training on this machine and that it will allow power to come onto the machine so that you can use it. On our high risk machines, like that lathe that we looked at, we also require the staff to have a re-verification process where they come along and tap onto this same device, and they ask the questions of the user about what they're doing and checking over the setup of the equipment. We also have the red e-stop at the top here that has a key lock as a formal override as well. So by using this device that's now fitted to all the machines and equipment within UQ Innovate, we can make sure that nobody accidentally or inadvertently walks up to a machine and turns it on unless they're approved to do so. So now onto area programming. So the purpose of UQ Innovate, as I said, its first priority is teaching and learning support. And you'll see here images of all sorts of activities going on. Practicals, third year engineering, building race cars. There's our presentation space down here on the bottom right. The architect students also do modelling within the space, both within their own school, but also in conjunction with UQ Innovate. We have welding facilities and just a myriad of things that are there to support teaching and learning. We also run a lot of tours and events. So you can see here the opening of the space. We had the Director General visit, so that was a very proud moment for my team. We do a lot of high school outreach, UQ Open Days and other events, alumni engagement sessions. It's a very busy place. So when we're not teaching, we're normally running some sort of tour or event. So what are the support systems that are in place to help us run this space? So UQ Innovate, whilst it is a standalone makerspace, it also is part of the larger team, and we have other workshops within the faculty. So the advanced prototyping workshop, also instrumentation electronics. So the makerspace does not stand alone. As I said, its main purpose is to teach you to do it for yourself. But of course, there are things that will often be outside of the capability of most people. And so we still have other both paid and other supported workshops, including the advanced prototyping workshop. And you can see here that the complexity of the machining work that's available. So it's used in conjunction with our makerspace. And I think that's a really important part of this presentation, to get across the idea that the makerspace, from UQ's perspective, it can't stand alone, yet it wouldn't make sense for it to be all under one roof. One, it physically wouldn't fit in the space, but two, they serve different purposes. There's different levels of risk, different levels of expertise, different levels of investment, and in some cases, different clientele. So that was one of our learnings, which we'll come to shortly. It was really important that we had a dedicated website. So you can go onto this at any time, the makerspace.uq.edu website, and you'll see greater detail about what I've been presenting here. It's a very depictive and easy to use website, and it also links our online induction. So it's really a one source of truth point for us, and we direct people to this site to get a better understanding before they come to our space. So it has conditions of use, online user induction link, equipment choices, a booking system. So our equipment needs to be booked in some cases for the very popular equipment. It has materials purchasing, and it also is a conduit to our 3D printing quote request system. So of course, staffing is just so important to a space like this. So our staffing model is we have trade and engineering qualified staff work in the space, and you can see one of our staff there busily cutting with a panel saw. So, I mean, that's an example of something, a tool that would require a great deal of training before we'd let a student loose on that. But it also shows the sheer size of some of the materials that we use, a very large piece of panel. It's called CLT there. What was interesting about our journey was it began with a spill and fill recruitment process. So when the faculty reviewed the technical workshops, it decided that all staff had to reapply. But that also gave an expectation around the new duties and service levels expected in the makerspace. The 3D printing facilities are run by staff. We just found that it's easier to make sure the machines are fully operational. But also it allows for cross-training of our staff and support between the different workshops, including that APW one we just saw before. We do have a student-assisted staffing model during peak teaching periods. I'll come back to that shortly. But one area that we really do still need to work on is there is a lack of diversity within the team, and this needs to be addressed. It would be easy for me to say it's the nature of the trade industry, that it's heavily male focused, for instance, but really we need to do more to change that. So what were some of the challengings and learnings that we came across in the making of this Makerspace? So really getting the word out throughout the faculty that this space was for everybody. It wasn't just for mechanical engineers. And the fact that the space actually does reside on the ground floor of the mechanical engineering school, it has its advantages because obviously that school we have the most to do with in the teaching and learning front, but it also sets perception that it was only for mechanical engineers, which isn't true. So really it's about breaking down those silos. Like any university, we certainly suffer from the boom and bust semester cycle, which produces inconsistent service levels and access for those that want to use the space. A balance of safety and accessibility, it's a constant battle. You know, how do we let students get to pieces of equipment like that manual lathe, and yet, you know, 16-year-olds allowed to drive cars on the road, and so who are we to turn around and say that an engineering student shouldn't be allowed to access industry-grade equipment that they will likely see when they graduate? For my team, it was a refocus away from this monetary transactional life that they would have led before the Makerspace, and really now it's about ideation capital. And of course, the other challenge is the space ever big enough? So the learnings, you can never do enough promotion. It's one of my key roles within the team. I am constantly knocking on doors and explaining what we do. I also say to my team, we now act as knowledge brokers. It's our role to make contacts to other parts of the university that may be possibly siloed and make that connection for people so they can use such diverse and an amazing amount of resources that is available at UQ. Load leveling the curriculum, you know, we were talking about that boom and bust cycle. We do that with outreach and engagement activities. It's also really important to document and automate as much as possible, and more of a self-service model. Fast fail and small bets. We need to resist that analysis paralysis where we don't make any move because you know, we're not sure that it's not 100% right. We're very much about having a go and doing so in a calculated and safe way. But it's really important to have a fast learning and move on from that. And of course, success is its own proof. And UQ Innovate has been a very large success with the faculty and is continuing to grow. And then, of course, COVID-19 came along. So I just thought I'd add this slide to say that just as we were getting going for semester one, of course, in 2020, the handbrakes came on. The St. Lucia campus all but shut down to face-to-face teaching, as many universities across the world did. But the team pitched both its skill and resources into COVID-19 response. So down the bottom here, our 3D printing facility actually started making 3D headbands, and it was such a success that actually we appeared on the ABC 730 report, reported, of course, how we were able to swing our educational resources in to help the fight. We also had the UQ ventilator hackathon. So the students across the faculty participated in a hackathon to develop ventilator designs, and the team in the space supported that. And up this top left here is just one of many devices that we made for research. And this is a wastewater treatment water sampler, and you would have seen a fair bit of that in the news. Maybe you may not have seen the device, but to think that our department was able to support that behind the scenes, is a great point of pride for us. So to the future, really now that we've got the space, it's really about building community. So a greater sense of student ownership. And we really want students to help run the space without necessarily that professional staff presence at all time. We want to build an even greater capacity supporting UQ Ventures in the E&I activities. And we want to build connections across the wider educational and community makerspace ecosystem. Links to industry are really important to our graduates, and we need to promote that as well. So look, thank you very much for listening to the presentation today. I know that I had to run through that fairly quickly. There's a lot to see, and I welcome anybody to visit the space. So as I like to say to my team, harking back to Willy Wonka at the beginning, we are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams. Thank you very much.